Well, here we are, Thoughts from the Office, Rednecks Pride Outdoors. I've got a doozy today. This is one of those thinking videos. And some of you are going to laugh, scoff, and turn it off. And that's fine. And some of you may find it interesting, and others will look at me with that squinted eye of uncertainty. Now, what is this video that this thinking video that I'm thinking about doing, or am doing? And it's titled "Animals Are Dumb, or Are They?" Now, I'm gonna say right off the get-go, right now, I do not believe that most animals have the ability to reason a great deal. I think there is some reasoning power. I've heard research say that some of the more intelligent animals could be on a reasoning power of a 3-year-old. And if you think about that, the reasoning power of a 3-year-old, think about how much the 3-year-old actually learns. But I do not believe that God gave animals the ability to reason like we as humans do, or even come close to it. If he did, they would have been able to read and do multi-functions by thinking about it. Now, what we run into a lot of times, though, and what I run into a lot of times, is there are people who put the animal on a godlike status. They take the animal and they put them up on this level of all-knowing and all-power. Deer hunters do that a lot. But they only do it on the big buck that they're after. Trappers do it a lot on the coyote. Some people tend to take that animal and they put the animal on a plane that they are just these great thinkers, great things, and you know what, I'm going to be mean here, but I think part of the reason some of us may put an animal on a pedestal like that is pride. Because when we take that target buck or we take those coyotes, it makes us feel like we are higher quality, if you will, in either being a hunter or a trapper or a fisherman. I don't believe animals have the ability to be godlike. I believe the animals learn things. I'll give you that. And I think they learn a lot more than we think. The next group of folks that I find a lot, probably more than the ones who put them on a pedestal, are the folks that truly believe animals are just flat out dumb, and that them being a human with our reasoning power, there's not an animal that we can't hunt or trap and get. I run into that a lot. And you know, keep it simple, stupid type thing. You know, the animals are just dumb. Just all you got to do is this type thing. And I believe that that again is a result of just somebody thinking of themselves in a manner in which they are able to do it all or get it all done. And then there are the folks that probably I fall into now. I may not have always been in here, but I fall into this group here, and that is that the animal, 80%, and that's not a absolute number for you absolute people. 80% is just a representation of what I'm talking about. Needed to put something on it. It could be 90, it could be 95, it could be 60. It doesn't matter. It's like those equations where you see X, Y, Z, W, X. I don't know all that stuff. So 80% is just a representation number. The 80-20 concept. The 80-20 concept is this. A large portion of the animals, more than not, more than half, if not a lot more than half, a large majority of that animal's species, that populace, they are going to be easier to hunt or trap or get than 20% of the populace. I don't even know if I'm using the word populace right. But you take 80% of the raccoons, or the majority of the raccoons, are going to be easier to catch than the 20% or the other portion of that population. And the reason is simply this. First of the year, animals that have dummied down, animals who are careless, animals who don't pay attention, animals over hungry, animals stressed out, whatever reason, are going to fall to our methods easier and faster than 20% of them are going to. And I honestly believe that for the most part, we as humans pump our chests on the 80%. I are good, I are great, I am the man, I am the woman, the whatever. Because we just go out and get the 80 when they're just suicidal or looking to be killed any old how. Don't know no better. You know, I had a squirrel job the other day. Young squirrels, baby squirrels. About the 12-week-old mark. They was a little bit older, okay? And I said to the gentleman, I went out and I caught the female, bang, right off the get-go. And we had no access into the attic, nor did I want to have access in the attic. If you ever go into my methods of squirrel control and the 6 phases of gray squirrels, you'll see that I never set inside attics. Very seldom. All right. And I said to him, here's what's going to happen. These young squirrels are sticking their head out, peeking their head out to me. And I'm almost able to call them to me. But I can't quite, I've had my hand 3 inches from them, but they're just at that 12, 13-week-old mark to where they're just cautious enough of me. You know, they're not like a 8-week-old young one that you just reach down and pick the son of a gun up, right? Excuse me. But I said, I see 3. There might be 3 or 4, maybe 5. I don't know. But man, I got to. Forgive me. I said, so here's what's going to happen. I've gotta go away for a day, so I'm not going to have my trap there because I can't check it the next day. I said, but no big deal. Here's what's going to happen. These young ones are going to come out of that hole because mom's not there. They're juvenile delinquents. And I said, what's going to happen at this point is this. They're old enough to survive on their own, but they're not smart enough to. At least the first few aren't. And he looked at me and goes, what do you mean? I said, they have no fear. They have a little bit of a caution. They have a little bit of a concern. They have a little bit of instinct. But up until this point, they've been living inside your attic and they have not ventured out into the world yet, and they haven't faced any dangers. So they're just oblivious to anything other than their normal caution or instincts that God has given them. They haven't honed them yet. They haven't figured them out yet. And I said, what's going to happen is, until I can get back in a day, these little squirrels are going to come out and they're going to be running all over your roof. And as long as they stay on your roof, they're going to probably be okay. I said, but as soon as they instinctually hop from the roof to the tree or go down the corner, which they instinctually will go down the corners or the downspouts. It's amazing. Even though they don't know, the instincts takes over. I said, as soon as they hit the ground, their chances of survival is very, very slim. I said, because they may have figured out or found out or did by accident something to get off the roof, but they're really not understanding how to get back up onto the roof. And I said, a cat or a dog or a hawk or an owl or your dog is going to catch them on the ground and they're going to get killed. And he goes, why? Why would they get killed? And I said, because they don't know yet. They don't know to stay away from your dog. Your dog is just something that, wow, what's that? Okay. Just like I can reach down at 8 weeks old, 9 weeks old, even 10 weeks old, call them, right to me and pick them up. That's how I got the nickname Man Who Talks to Animals. But at 12 weeks old, they start getting that little bit of, when they're getting ready to leave the house. And then when they do leave the house, that's when the real learning experience happens. He called me that night, the next night it was. He said, well, there's 2 of them you ain't got to worry about. And I laughed and I said, what happened? He said, that dog of mine got both of them. He said, they stood there looking at him. He saw them and done, gone. So he said, you said that to me, but I didn't believe you. And then he goes, oh, it's not that I didn't believe you. It's just, I just couldn't reason what you were saying. Exact words. I went back and I caught 2 more real quick. Bam, bam. Okay, because they wasn't smart yet. And then I looked at him and I said, there's a last one. There's number 5, young. And he goes, what's going to happen there? I said, this one has learned in a matter of 3 days how to avoid me. And took me another day or two to catch that squirrel. Now, if that squirrel had been a year old and wanted to avoid me, I'd been dealing with it a little bit longer. And if that squirrel had been 2 or 3 years old, especially a 3-year-old squirrel, I've been dealing with that squirrel a lot longer, and maybe pulling my hair out trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Now I know a lot of you guys are saying to yourself, whatever. Okay, you go ahead and think that. All right, you're talking to a guy that has been known to catch 2,000 squirrels in a year. All right, 2,000 squirrels in a year, and I have squirrels out of that 2,000 I could not catch any way, shape, or form. Now God has showed me you better not get prideful, son, because I'm going to take everything I give you away from you. So I never let it get pride. I realize that there's going to be a percentage of animals, that 20%, that's going to give me a rough time. You're going to give me a rough time. Rough time. And out of that 20%, there's going to be a portion of them I ain't never going to get. That's simple. And I ain't too proud to admit that, because I've been there, done that, my friends. So what's all this mean? What's this mean to you, the wildlife control specialist? What's this mean to you, the trapper? What's this mean to you, the hunter? Truth of the matter is, you ain't good enough to get them all. I ain't good enough, and you ain't. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you think you are. I don't care how high you put yourself on a pedestal. You ain't good enough to get them all. Because at a certain point, some of them developed a sixth sense, an intuition, a gut feeling, indigestion. I don't know what it is, but some of them developed this something, and you ain't going to catch them. You ain't going to kill them. You ain't going to get them. And I truly believe that was God put that whatever it is into some animals so that the species will continue. We as trappers call it skimming the cream, leaving seed. Truth of the matter is, we don't get all the 80%. We get a lot of the 80%, and we get some of the 20s, and the ones that's left become 20s and learn through experience, learn through close calls, learn through whatever, but they learn. I remember seeing a raccoon, watching a raccoon. My grandfather told me about that. I didn't quite believe him when I was a 12, 13-year-old kid, but my grandfather out in Oklahoma, again, I talk about him. He was born in 1898. He lived in Oklahoma, and he moved there before there was a state. And he talked about riding a horse across the pastures before the fences was there, when it was still Indian Nation. And he lived up in, I believe it was Cherokee County. Cherokee Nation is where he lived, up there, that northeast corner there. Welsh, Blue Jacket, Bonita area, Miami. And I remember him telling me that a raccoon can unscrew the lid of a mason jar, and I didn't believe it. And sometime later, I watched a raccoon fiddling with a mason jar. I won't tell you how I was able to watch that raccoon. We'll just leave that quiet. But I had a raccoon I mean, I watched a raccoon that the lid was just screwed on tight. Not tight, but tight. And I watched that raccoon trying to get into that jar after something, and it was fiddling around, and all of a sudden I remember seeing the raccoon by chance make the lid move, and it moved to the right, righty-tighty, or to the left rather, and it moved to the left, and then it kind of like did it again, as not certain, and then all of a sudden it like dawned on it that if it continued that movement, that lid was moving. Now, I don't believe that raccoon in reality said, "Oh, the lid's coming off." I don't believe the raccoon said that to itself. I think the raccoon said, "Oh, there's a movement." And with the attention span that a raccoon has, he's like me watching TV with a remote control. Click, 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 click. Okay? I believe his intentions was to get into that jar to get that thing, but as soon as that movement happened, that thing disappeared out of his brain, and that movement did. And now it's like, whoa, another movement, and he got the lid off, and then when the lid was off, it was like, oh, I can go into this thing now. I believe that raccoon from that point on was able to loosen a loosely tightened lid on a mason jar. We know raccoons learn how to open up trash cans. We know bears learn to open up trash cans. We know that pigs know how to lift up the door on the feeder. We know that foxes can figure out how to get into a chicken coop. So, you know, when we're talking animals as trappers and hunters and what have you, I just try to be in the middle. Most of them are going to be easy. Most of them I'm going to catch. Most of them I'm going to get. Most of them I'm going to be able to make myself look good. I remember as a young man rabbit hunting, jump shooting rabbits back in them days, the early days, 14, 15-year-old kid, jump shoot, and by the age of 14, I had been out in the woods and fields since 7 years old. And I'll never admit it, but I may have been trying to carry a bow and arrow with my dog at 7 or 8 years old, trying to kill a rabbit or trying to kill a quail with a bow and arrow. Never did, but I may have tried, okay? 10 years old, I started learning how to trap. So by the time I was 14 years old, I had a pretty good understanding of where rabbits was going to be. And I can remember as that 14, 15-year-old kid going to a spot that I knew there was going to be a rabbit. My grandfather taught me a lot of that stuff. I wish I understood all that he showed me. There's another thing. I made a post. Can woodsmanship be taught, or can it be learned? And some people say both, and some people say it's one and the same. Taught and learned is the same thing. Well, in this case here, it's not. Because my grandfather taught me things that I adopted and did, and there was things that I learned on my own by accident, if you will. But getting back to it, I knew where these rabbits would be, and I had a little 12 gauge single shot. And I'd go stomping them briars and looking, trying to pick out their ears and all that, because back in them days, I'd shoot that sucker in the bed just as quick as look at it. Oh, where's your fairest chase? My fairest chase was, I wasn't that good of a shot, and I knew it. Okay? It's that simple. My granddaddy told me, you want to eat tonight, you shoot the sucker in the bed, take his head off. All right? That's one thing he taught me. But anyway, I'd go in there and I'd see a rabbit. Or I'd jump a rabbit and off he'd go. Boom! I'd shoot the old 12 gauge off, and I wasn't a big feller. And that old 12 gauge would kick the snot out of me, gun would go everywhere, the whole kit and caboodle. Anyway, I'd miss. I noticed after I did that a time or two of missing that rabbit, that rabbit didn't let me get that close anymore. Even though he was back in the same haunt, he was back in the same briar patch, he was back in the same spot just about. I knew he'd be in this 10-foot area, okay? He wouldn't let me get that close anymore. After missing him once or twice, I noticed that I'm 20 feet away, and there he goes. Here he comes, there he goes. Josie, what are you saying? Well, that's what you're going to get out of this. To some of you, I ain't saying nothing. To some of you, I'm just rambling old man. A redneck that's lost his cuckoo. Some of you are going to get exactly what I'm trying to tell you. Well, I rambled on enough as an old man. It's up to you to figure out if I said anything worth thinking about. I'll catch you guys later. Redneck's Pride Outdoors. Thoughts from the office.